I guess you've all heard it's an aphorism, but I think it's actually based on data that we change careers 6 times in our lives, approximately, the typical person. Have you heard this? Okay, I'm looking at you two. We change careers. People, it's typical of people to change careers. So I'm going to start with high school. Just in high school, I was a clarinetist. It was my passion. I practiced 8 hours a day. I was first chair in the Florida Youth Orchestra and in the Florida Wind Ensemble. Clarinet was my life. That's how I spoke in the world, was through my musical instrument. That's how I understood the world, and that's how I related to people. But I ended up going to, a small liberal arts college you might have heard of. It's called Rhodes. A lot like Millsaps, but a little more impressed with itself. I loved it there. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely loved it there. But now that I'm here, I have no desire to be there. So I went to Rhodes. I applied to some music, just schools of music, but I felt better about the liberal arts. I felt better about not being hemmed in and having an opportunity to take lots of courses and to really sort of develop my whole self. And so I went to Rhodes, and when I got to Rhodes, oh, Anita, there's not going to be anything here you don't already know. Oh, okay, cool. So when I got to Rhodes, I took Heritage, had a different title, but it was Heritage. I took all kinds of things. I also was kind of aware that the life of a professional musician might not be exactly the right fit for me. I'm a homebody, and I like being home. And the way I understood the life of a professional musician, I didn't know that there were such things as academic musicians, but I saw myself, that whole life was about becoming part of a symphony and also traveling and playing concerts all over. That's what my teachers were doing. And so, that was the vision I had. And then, so I had some questions there whether that life was going to be right for me. And then I was in the pit orchestra, which is hard. It's a weird image when I think about it, because the pit orchestra was actually way up above the stage for the first college theatrical production, the musical, in my first year at Rhodes. And man, did I love being there every night. And of course I loved playing, but it just felt so good to be in that theater. And I had done some theater in high school, and I had kind of harbored a secret wish to do some acting, and but I was very, very shy. So I felt so much better having my instrument, and being part of an ensemble, and theater just seemed really scary. But boy, did that experience being part of that production, it was just like fairy dust being sprinkled around. It was just so, I can't find the words, because it just went right through me. It was so magical to me. And so I decided, well, during rehearsals even, I had said, well, I'll stop by and I'll help paint the set, and I can just throw myself into this. I've, got classes under control, so I can do some extracurriculars. And so after that show was over, I guess I was on the list or whatever, but I started, this was before email. I started getting, yes, I am that old. I started getting, notes in my campus mailbox, like, we're having a set painting day for the next show, or come out and try out, or we're having a little workshop, or whatever. I just started going to the theater stuff. Rhodes didn't have a full-scale orchestra. They had a wind ensemble. I was doing that as well, but the theater just started to pull me. I even felt, I just felt like I could maybe like come out of a cocoon or something. It just felt I just felt so much possibility. Like everything that music was for me, but even more. Because also there were words and there were stories, and I know those things exist in music as well, but for me, I don't know, something was shifting. So I started doing a lot of theater, but meanwhile, the pragmatic side of myself said, well, what are you going to do, be an actor? That's not going to happen. You're just a little meek little thing. You can't do that. So I was also taking classes in psychology. I had loved psychology in high school, had a subscription to Psychology Today. You know, I was doing all the things. I was sitting around reading Freud at lunch. So I was also taking classes in psychology, and I was kind of thinking, maybe this would be a great major because I could really, I could help people in some serious ways. I was really attracted to the idea of being able to give something to other people, which incidentally you also do when you perform. So I basically had these two things going, right? I was doing all the psychology classes, I was doing all the theater stuff, and then it got to be dun, 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 like a month before Major Declaration Day. They didn't call it that then, but it was like, a hard deadline, right? You have to pick something. And I was like, oh no, I have to pick something, and I don't know which thing. I mean, this is going to decide the rest of my life. Guess what? It actually really didn't. But, you feel like that when you're a sophomore in college. This is going to decide my whole life. And so I didn't know how to make the decision, but I don't know, a little flash of insight. I said, all right, I'm going to pick one of these tracks, and I'm going to walk around for 2 weeks, because I had about a month. I'm going to walk around for 2 weeks as if I have chosen that. And I'm just going to live in my world as if that's my path. And I'm just going to kind of, go through my days as if that's what I've chosen. And then, then I have 2 more weeks, I can try the other one. So for reasons unknown to me, but, well, probably because that was the one, I picked theater first. And I walked around, and I was so enlivened. And there was just so much to it. So then it came the 2 weeks for psychology, and I picked that. And I was like, yeah, I got to take statistics, which I had already taken statistics. To me, it was mindless. I'm good at math, so that was just like, that's gonna be so boring. I have to take all these quantitative things. That's so boring. I don't need classes for that. A little bit arrogant about my math abilities at that time. And so I realized, okay, I'm not excited about this. I'm excited about pieces of it, but I'm not excited about the whole path that's gonna be in front of me. But the other one I am excited about, scared to death, but excited. So I picked theater. Much to my parents' they were like, okay. My dad was like, okay, I think we should get you an internship when you come home from this summer in maybe arts administration or something like that. So I got an internship. They kicked me out of the box office after 2 weeks and said, go to the tech place. We want you stage managing. We want you coaching they were doing Annie. We want you coaching the kids. Little foreshadowing there. That you're wasted here. Go do something more stimulating to yourself. And so so that was a great experience. I kept being told as a theater major that I was too short for stage work and I should pursue film. So I heard that message. I didn't totally believe it, but I did hear it. And, okay, funny story. So it comes to be awards day my senior year. See, Rose is so similar to Millsaps. It comes to be awards day my senior year. Well, I had a boyfriend. I was really at that moment more interested in my boyfriend than awards day. And I didn't get again, this is before email, I didn't get any little note that said, hey, you better show up at awards day. Well, it turns out, unbeknownst to me, I was given the award for outstanding theater student, but I wasn't there. So my name was on the wall in the Rhodes Theater for years. They've redecorated now, but for many years, and I was very proud of it. It was there long enough that I got to show my daughter. But yeah, so I guess I did pretty well in my theater major because they liked me. So at that point I was still kind of confused as to, what kind of graduate school am I going to go to, or am I going to just try to make a go of this right out of college? So I needed more time, so I worked for the college for a year in an administrative position, like so many of us do. And then I decided to go to graduate school, and I applied to a bunch of places that were, I decided to go the intellectual route because I was feeling a lot more, I felt that I could count on my intellect more than on other people choosing me to be an actor. So I applied to a bunch of MA, PhD programs, ended up at the University of Pittsburgh. And they offered this really cool program it's called Performance Studies. And it's basically theater history, but heavily influenced by an anthropology lens. It's a much more common field now. The field was kind of just breaking through at that time. But that was great, except that I just wandered into the auditions for the MFA students' shows, and I got cast in 3 plays. And so then I was doing plays all the time, and I was loving that. But they were, you're supposed to be a scholar, or you're not supposed to be an actor. What's with all these plays that you're in? Stop being in them. Start writing about them. So I did that, and I spent a lot of time alone in the library writing about them, and realizing that most of what I was writing would never be read by, even if it was published, writing about like 3 little words in King Lear about Edgar, and brilliant piece of writing that like no one is ever going to read except like maybe one other person that's writing on Edgar and nothingness. I was so proud of that paper, but I also felt like kind of a lack of purpose, because like, where is this going? And I was just all by myself in the library. All by myself. So, because like the writing that I was doing, this was not a time where collaboration was big. It was, it was like, you go write something and show us you can think. And so I got pretty depressed. It was, the social isolation and there's a lot of creativity in writing and, analyzing historical documents and texts and things like that. But I don't know. It just wasn't right. I had to make a change. And at that time, Orlando, my hometown, was having a big boom in its film industry. And remember what my teachers at Rhodes told me? You should do film, right? So I talked to my my professors, and I said, I'm not feeling this. And they were like, well, we'll let you into the MFA program. How about that? I was like, I think I really just need a change of scenery. Pittsburgh is very dismal, by the way. It's very dismal. Great, so much stuff to do, but dismal. So I think I need a change of scenery. And so I just finished up a master's degree real quick, and went to Orlando. Started working in the local theater community and film and television. Just little stuff. I was on the Mickey Mouse Club one day. I was on the Mickey Mouse Club. I was not a regular, but I did work with Britney Spears one day. Actually, and danced with Justin Timberlake. Just like a waltz kind of thing, not anything fancy. Because, see, at that time, I was 24, 25, something like that, but I looked like I was 15. And so I was getting parts in theater and film and television where they would normally have had to hire a young person, and they would have to have like an on-set tutor or something. But since I was an adult, you know, no on-set tutor, cheaper, right? And also I had training. So like the reason I got that Mickey Mouse Club part was because I had stage combat training from my college degree. Yes.
You fought Britney Spears?
I did. Yeah, I punched her in the stomach and pulled her hair. Yeah. I know how to do this without hurting people. That's what they teach you in theater school, among other things. I could also analyze the scripts from a semiotic lens, so there's that. But yeah, so I was doing that for a while, but it was very unstable. Work comes in and then work doesn't come in. I really actually, looking back, I was unusually successful because I was actually never not working. And sometimes I was juggling 2 or 3 different projects, which is really rare for a professional actor in, Orlando is a decent sized city, but it's not New York or Chicago or LA. So I was actually really successful, but I didn't have health insurance. I couldn't make plans. I wanted to go travel in Europe and do, I just wanted to do the kinds of things you do before you have a mortgage. And I couldn't make plans because I didn't know, what's my income going to be coming up? And so to kind of stabilize some of it, I started teaching. Initially adult acting classes, but then going down to teens and then going down lower and lower and lower until I was teaching everybody from 3-year-olds to adults in different theater schools all over town. And I pretty much was, I basically had my own business, and it was really great because instead of in acting, what you have to do to be allowed to do the creative work is you have to spend all your time saying, here's how great I am, and don't you want to hire me? And you have to do all these this is how they did it then. You had to do all these mailings all the time. You had to be sending your headshot out, weekly, getting your face in front of casting people. And I had agents, but, I wanted more agents. I wanted representation through the whole state. And, you have to constantly be doing that. And you have to, everywhere you go, it has to be, hi, I'm an actor. And, and you have to stay very, very fit. I lost a chance at to give you the feel of things. Okay, so I was much thinner than I am now, and I'm okay now. But I was tiny, and I got kicked out of an audition for a Wet n Wild commercial. It's a water park because I had too much hips. They were like, what's it with the hips? You can go. And that's the kind of thing that would happen, right? But you have to go to that stuff because that's how you can earn money, so you can do the artistic stuff, right? So the acting life was challenging. I was also directing and producing, and I was doing a lot of stuff. But man, watching those students, whether they were 3 or 60, watching them go from not knowing how to do something and just not having their footing to being able to create a moment on stage, that was magic. Right? And it didn't require me to sell myself. All it required was for me to see what's going on with you, right? And to see to figure out what needs to happen for you to find the thing you need to find, right? So that's amazing. That's the best thing in the world, right? So I was just teaching. And then one of the places where I had a theater program at an Episcopal school, they said, you know, we love what you're doing with the theater program, but we could really use a sub in music from time to time. Could you maybe come do that? Sure, why not? I had some training in music, instrumental and vocal because of theater. And so I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And then they were like, could you also do PE? Like, well, I guess, you know, if you're really desperate. And so I did PE. And then they're like, how about first grade? Okay, I can do first grade. And so you see where this went, right? Pretty soon I was subbing for everything for them all the time. And then this other school, a Catholic school, heard about me, and they were like, we need a sub for fourth grade. And what they didn't tell me was that this was a fourth grade class that had run off every other. It wasn't that they just needed a sub. It was they needed a sub for this particular class because no one would do it, right? So, but I didn't know that, and I didn't even know it was an option to like leave in the middle of the day. So I went, and oh, hey, have you seen those? Have you seen the signs for Morgan and Morgan law firm?
Yeah.
Okay, that guy, the older man, his son was in that fourth grade class. It was a holy terror. So anyway, I stayed. I didn't know you could leave. So I was like, I didn't know the term classroom management. I didn't know anything. I knew nothing about education. I didn't know there was classroom management. But I was like, I was like, okay, you know what? This is not going to work, people. We're not going to get through the day. So we're going to have a system. Let's practice it. Let's get it right. All right, you got it? That's what's going to happen the rest of the day. Now, let's learn things, right? I didn't know I was doing classroom management, but turns out that's what I was doing. So then, that principal, I went in to get, to say, okay, I finished the day. Can I get paid? And they were looking at me and they're like, wait, you're still here? They really said that. They were like, you're still here? The school day just ended, and they were like, wow. And it didn't mean anything to me at the time, but just like a couple days later, I got a call from a different Catholic school, and they said, we were looking to hire I think it was an art teacher, but we heard about you, apparently through the Catholic grapevine. And they're like, we could do theater. You know, if you could maybe like pull on theater to cover, you know, all the arts. And I was like, well, you know, let's talk. And then at the same time, there was a job opening for an alternative school that was, it was like kids who weren't making it in the regular public school for various reasons. And so it was, or like they got kicked out. And so I had also applied to that because I was really digging the teaching. And so I ended up getting both jobs. And so that was a real moment of conflict because on the one hand, one was working with a group of kids that were really, it was going to be theater, but they really needed it. You know, these were kids that were kind of lost in the world and they really needed it. But it was also a 50 week a year job, right? And then there was the Catholic school, which was pre-K through 8, and I was going to be doing theater, but also music, visual art, and media arts. The media arts was actually by my suggestion, but I was going to be doing all that stuff. And I don't know, that was one of those, and so I went back to my old, let's walk around, like I've made the decision, but I didn't have a month. I had like 48 hours or something, so 24 hours. And I really don't know why, but I picked the Catholic school. I still feel a little guilty about it because I really maybe should have gone where the need was, and I maybe could have done a lot of good there, but the Catholic school felt more like the right place. I don't know. So, you know what I'm talking about? Sometimes you just have, a place feels right. Meanwhile, there's a whole other stream of my life going on. So I told you I was really into the teaching, and I was teaching acting classes all over town. Well, one of the places I was teaching, the students, they only offered acting 1 to teen students. And I kept going to them and saying, can we please offer an acting 2 class? My students want to continue, and they're taking acting 1 over and over again. And, and then I've got new people coming in, and, we really need a sequence. And they were like, no, we're not doing that. So I said, all right, I got to do something for these students because they're hungry for this. And then, simultaneously, a friend of mine that I had worked for, just like a make some money, have some money in the pocket job at a consignment store, she had started working at this organization for families where somebody in the family had HIV or AIDS, and they were about supporting the children in the family. And she came to me and she said, I'm really having a hard time getting programming. You're involved in theater. Can you get somebody to come do something with my kids? And so I had high school students who wanted more, and this organization of who had kids that needed something special for them. And then I had me, who was having this crisis of conscience about how acting is so self-centered, and I said, this is an opportunity to do something good in the world. So I talked to my high school students and I said, do you want to do a project where we take maybe a storybook or something and we perform it for these kids at the center? And they were like, oh yeah, let's do that. And so we did that, and they were so into it, the high school students, and the kids were so excited. And so the high school students were like, can we keep doing this? And so I couldn't see a reason why not. So I said, well, let's do it, but let's really do it. Let's make a nonprofit, and then we can get grants, and then we can we'll have a name, and we can get our word out. And this was when websites were just starting, and we can have a website, and people can I know it was yeah, we can have a website. It was black and white. It was just HTML was coded, hand coded. But and we can be a service in this city. And so I founded a nonprofit. We got our 501c3 designation. The group is called Theater Works of Central Florida, and the mission was using theater so it's called Theater Works, right? So using theater to do works in the world. And so the teenagers would come and they would get actor training and some production training and so forth at no cost. And that was great because I got to serve a lot of low-income kids who couldn't go to those places where I was teaching acting, right? That was not going to happen for them. But they could come meet with me. I got a partnership going with the public library where we could meet there. And they could come in, so we would rehearse, we would create productions, generally adapted from children's books. And then the public library was like, hey, that's right up our alley. How about if we set up a series where you guys go all around to all the branches of the library in the metro area, and that way you can reach kids that wouldn't afford to be able to go to the theaters in town to see a children's play or something. And so we did that for several years. We would do the children's play based on the book, and then we would say, hey, we got this book at this library, and you can too, and you can make up plays with your friends, and hey, why don't we try that right now? And we would split up into groups, and we would have the kids create something and perform for each other, and they would say, you can go and do this, with your friends, look, you didn't need anything, just your imagination. We really don't know if any of them did that, but it brought kids into the library. We were featured performers for the opening of the Borders Books in Winter Park, Florida. That was one of our shining moments. We also performed frequently at a place called the Boggy Creek Gang Camp, which is a camp for children with terminal illnesses. or like lifelong illnesses. And so that was when we had to learn how to be adaptive. You know, they might not have the use of their legs, or they, you know, so then we started going to hospitals, and so it was a really thriving organization. And so remember my friend who was working with the AIDS organization? Well, she told another AIDS organization about us, and that they were supporting the actual people who have HIV. And they were saying, we need to do we need a prevention program on top of our support program. And so they contacted me and said, you know, how could we partner together with your organization and ours for HIV prevention aimed at teenagers? It's like, well, let's ask the teenagers, right? So we got the teenagers together, and we were like, well, they said, first of all, don't scare us. We tune out when people do that. Don't make a play that's all scary about someone suffering with HIV. No one's going to listen to that. So we decided on sketch comedy, like Saturday Night Live, right? And so I taught them how to perform and how to generate those kinds of things. And we created this whole, it was kind of modular. So we had all these different pieces that you could plug in depending on what an audience or what an organization wanted us to do. But so we created this whole long piece of HIV education. And so, like, one example was we had this sketch where there was this alien leader, and he wanted to take over Earth. He wanted to conquer Earth, and he heard that HIV was the great villain that could help us conquer Earth. And he said, bring me HIV to his little minions. And so they were little, like, they just spoke gibberish, and they would run out, and they would come back with a toilet seat. And then the alien leader would look up in this book of knowledge and say, no, you cannot get AIDS from a toilet seat, or HIV from a toilet seat. Go away and bring me HIV. And, you know, and they would come back with, and so, like, handling the myths of how, right? So that's just an example, but it was funny, and the teens paid attention. And then the other organization trained all of the teens to be peer counselors. And so we would perform, and then we would break up into small, more intimate groups and say, okay, you know, what do you want to know based on what we performed? Or, you know, do you have personal questions? And so we counted it at one point, and we had reached over 20,000 people. We were actually featured in there's a comedian a while back named Louis Armstrong. I think he might have come to some sort of nefarious end, but at the time, he was a big thing. And he was putting on an AIDS benefit in Orlando, and he asked us to open the show, right? Which was so scary. But anyway, so we were getting attention, and we reached a lot of people by doing that. So meanwhile, so I keep that going all the way through, and I'm teaching now at the Catholic school. We're getting close. We're in the late 90s now. So I'm teaching at the Catholic school, and I was like, you know, maybe I should get a license. The Catholic school really wasn't concerned. At the time, there was a provision that if you had extensive professional experience in a field, you actually weren't required to have a license. I was thinking, like, maybe knowing something about this profession would help me do it better. So I went back to school, and I took the classes to get a license. And then, but I was very frustrated. In fact, I even got in a little bit of trouble because the classes were just so, you know what I'm saying? Like, they were so, I'm sorry, they were really dumb. They were so understimulating. And I got in trouble because I was reading, like, I got into this whole theory, do you know cognitive apprenticeship, Julie? Do you remember that? Okay. Well, it's sociocultural stuff, right? And so, like, I was reading all this stuff, and so we had to do presentations in class one day, in my pedagogy class, like what you teach. And we had to do presentations, and so I wanted to do cognitive apprenticeship. And first of all, the teacher had never heard of it. And then, second of all, he kept correcting me, but he'd never heard of it. So that didn't go well. And then our next task was to pick something, it was like some kind of learning theory or something. So I picked multiple intelligences. Now, I think Julie probably knows what's coming. If you research, have you heard of multiple intelligences? Okay, if you research that, you will find out that there's no science there. It's like a made-up model that somebody just created out of their heads. Not that anybody ever does that, but so yeah, and it was, I mean, there was pseudoscience, there was bad science, but nobody could confirm this idea through vigorous empirical research. Now, when you apply it in schools, you get good results because you're offering students the arts and you're letting them move and you're letting them, so it works as a curricular model, but there's no science to show that we actually have multiple intelligences. In fact, the science shows we don't. We have a single unified intelligence that is made up out of the characteristics of our nervous system. And then we have interests and personal goals and proclivities that might shape our abilities. So that's what I said in class. Turns out my teacher was a multiple intelligences scholar. And then we were talking about it on the discussion board, and I said something along the lines of, well, if one familiarizes oneself with the research on this matter, one will see that he brought me up on moral charges. I almost got kicked out. It was horrible because I was still a little meek thing. The only way I was not a meek thing was because of my acting training. That's still very true. And so this was like, I didn't know how to handle. I'm like a good girl, like I follow the rules. But it bothers me when people are like intellectually inconsistent with themselves, and yeah. So the people on the committee of the the more ethical, moral, they were like, they threw the case out. But I had to go before the committee and explain all of why there's no science behind it. So, yeah, but so that started to make me realize that maybe I needed to be in a different intellectual setting. So I saw some other classes, like, well, hey, can I take those classes instead? And they're like, well, you have to be in the doctoral program for that. So I said, well, could I be in the doctoral program? And they said, well, yeah, sure, here's the scholarship. I didn't take the scholarship because it wasn't enough to pay my mortgage, but so I started at UCF, and I was just taking classes in the doctoral program for no apparent reason, just to grow. And but it really did reflect on what I was doing on a daily basis at the Catholic school, which was such a great job. I would put on a Christmas show with 300 elementary kids and a spring show that they wrote themselves with 4 classes of middle school students. And it was such great. It was the students, I'm in touch with them still, and they look back on that and they say this was an important experience because we owned it, right? So I was doing good work. I wasn't helping the really lost students, but I was doing good work. And then, but I got intellectually hooked by the graduate program, and I started thinking, maybe I need to be doing this. I was just kind of good at it. Like, I got a paper. Okay, so only Julie will get this, but I got a paper into AERA, my professor was like, you need to just send this to AERA. So I was like, okay, and I sent it, and I got in.
No big deal.
This is like the big national conference or international conference, and I didn't even know what it was. And so so it came naturally to me, and it was exciting again, and it was stimulating, and I thought, maybe I can have a bigger impact if I do this. And so, and meanwhile at my school, the principal had changed. Things were not as pink sweater fuzzy anymore. And also my mom died. And so I didn't feel as attached to Orlando anymore as I had. There was no way I was going anywhere while she had diabetes, and there was no way I was leaving town while she was in need. But she passed away, and it kind of cut a cord. And so I started thinking, well, man, if I'm doing this, why am I doing it at UCF? At the time, UCF is a really great education program now, but at the time it was just kind of so-so. And my professors were starting to tell me that. They would pull me aside and they were like, why are you at this school? And so I decided to apply to some other places, and I looked around to see where the really cool work was, and I found this guy who was an education professor, but his work was about improvisational theater and creativity, and I was like, oh, I know about that. And I could write about that, and I get that. And so I started writing to him. He's like, why don't you just come be in my PhD program? And then I said, well, maybe. And they brought me up for an interview, and then they said, here's almost as much money as you're making as a teacher that we'll pay you to come here. Trust me, I do not know how this happened. They have a fellowship program for women who want to go into academia. They're trying to boost it. So it's affirmative action. I'm a recipient of affirmative action. So they had this fellowship, and they're like, here, you can have this. Come, we want you. So, I mean, who's going to turn that down, right? Way to make a person feel like they need to be with you. So I went to Washington University, and I spent 5 years there earning my PhD in, it's called the Learning Sciences, but it's the science of learning. And I specialized in learning in sociocultural context. So that's actually bringing back the anthropology piece from my theater days. And it was also bringing in my theater reality, because theater is done as an ensemble. You can't look at it as an individual thing. The auditioning, but once it's made, it's not an individual thing. And so it didn't make sense to me to understand learning as something that's just isolatable people. So I was studying learning as a holistic process of a social group in a moment in history, in a place in culture. You understand all this. I know I'm probably not explaining it very well for anybody else, but it's just very robust and exciting. And meanwhile, I was volunteering at a center in St. Louis to do a drama program with kids that was a very low-income area, and so I didn't totally give that up. So yeah, I did that. I got really involved in AERA, that organization. I became the president of the Graduate Student Council, so I sat on the governing board of the organization. I got a really great insider's view of academia, and I was just I think this is good, but I want to go to a small school where I can really teach students. I don't want to just be in my head all the time, because I already learned that doesn't work. So WashU was a little weirded out by that. They were like, no, you're going to a research one university, and you're going to do amazing research all the time and make us feel proud of you. Here's a funny thing. They also told me that in 10 years I'd be the dean. Well, I'm not officially the dean, but I will tell you, exactly 10 years from that date, the state of Mississippi started calling me the dean of education at Millsaps College.
That's awesome.
Because we don't have that, but that's their language. So, so weird prediction. But anyway, it was so weird because it was exactly 10 years. Yeah. So, I looked for jobs, and I looked at small colleges, and I had an offer from a really cool place up in Pennsylvania, but it was so cold. And Millsaps, I got happy when I thought about working with people that some of you don't know, but Marlis Vaughn and Connie Schimmel. Yeah, Katie knew. And I just I could be getting up and going to work with them every day. Little did I know I'd be getting up and going to work with Julie Rust and Maria Wallace every day, which is also fabulous. But so I did the interviews, and but this just felt like my people. You know, I hope you all feel that way. You know, I came here, these are my people. I don't have to be anything different than I am. I don't have to play a character. I don't have to, you know, I can just be, and I can explore the possibilities, and I've done some really valuable things, I think, here. I had a program with teachers at a low-income school and drew on a lot of my drama training, and so here I am at Millsaps, and here I would like to stay with you. So that's the end. That's where we are right now. How's that on time? Okay, wow, I talked for that long. Man. Well, because I'm 50 years old, so there was like a lot of time to cover. I don't know, questions?
What was the first production that you did at Rhodes that like sparked that?
It's called Wonderful Town. It's a musical. I don't know if you've ever heard that song, Why oh, why oh, why oh, did I ever leave Ohio? That's from Wonderful Town. Yeah. Yeah. It's a moderately common musical. Yeah.
So if you could tell your 18-year-old self something, or your 22-year-old self, or your 26-year-old self, or whatever, what would you say?
Oh, I know. I would say, don't worry. You're going to get to do all of it.
Aww, that's such a good.
Yeah. Because I really did. Like, I would do in the psychology, I could do the theater. Not so much the music anymore, but my daughter's studying flute, and so I'm playing the flute these days. So yeah, and I mean, it's not out of the question. We got a pep band. You know,
there's a place for you.
There is. I know. I just gotta make a place in my day. But yeah, and that's the thing about a college, you know, and I don't know. So that's what I would say to all those people. I would say, it's okay. You're gonna get to do all of it. One thing that's attractive about being an actor is you get to live other lives than your own, right? But it turns out that if you just take care of yourself and explore your opportunities, you get to live a lot of lives. I forgot something. Oh my gosh. In 2012, I adopted a child. I guess it's vocational, right? I mean, I knew that I wanted to be a mom. I used to think not. In high school, I was like, oh, I'm not doing that. You're not catching me with that traditional gender role. Mm-mm. But, you know, over time, I was like, yeah, but I really like kids. I don't want to, like, contribute to any stereotypes just because I'm female. I can like kids, right? So, but then it was like, yeah, I think I'd like one of these for myself. But, you know, no coupling was happening that was going to work out. So I just said, well, I'm going to have to take things into my own hands. And there are basically two routes for that. And I debated a little bit, and then this was one of those things. It was like, I remember the moment. I was walking across the parking lot of my apartment building at Washington University, and it just like, lightning strike hit me on the head. It was like, I don't need to make a baby. I need to adopt. I am the right person to adopt. You know, I have the skill set, and I don't care. With all due respect, I personally don't have a great need to be pregnant. So I should adopt, because lots of people need to grow their babies, but I don't feel that need. So I should be the one to adopt the kid, right? And so I did. So there's that too. Also, she's deaf and she couldn't learn language until I adopted her and got her hearing aids, and then and now she's in 4th grade at Casey Elementary. Yeah.
Taking flute lessons.
Yes, she plays the flute. Used to be deaf, now plays the flute. How awesome is that? Right?